Hello and welcome to all the ghouls and vampires out there. I'm Joe here with me, my co-host Dan.
Hello and greetings.
And we have another Scooby-Doo Mystery Inc. podcast video for you guys and gals. It's been about 9 to 10 days since our last video. It's just, there's been a lot going on in real life, so we're kind of... It's been hard meeting every deadline. But anyways, we're back. After this, we're probably going to have to release another Friday the 13th video or maybe a Halloween 4 video or something. But this video is going to be centered on the next part of the scene, the movie, which is to say the part when Daphne is being interviewed by the one reporter, and the reporter says that these sort of stories always give her the heebie-jeebies, which is pretty funny. I rarely ever hear someone call it that. And you've got, of course, Daphne, who complains, yeah, but most of the monsters we ran into were just guys in bad Halloween costumes. You know, where's the fun in that? Well, she doesn't say where's the fun in that, but that's the sentiment. And you have the reporter who comments, got a little boring, did it? Yeah. And then, of course, attention is directed to Freddy, whom is the one-man production team for Daphne's Coast to Coast show, because Daphne became a reporter. Yes, she sold out. I'm joking. But this movie posits that things in a different light. Basically, from the original TV show, Freddy's reaction to all the cameras being on him is one of extreme shyness and almost horror, as he just smiles very nervously, waves a little, and blushes and just shrinks back. So that we see a side of Freddy we've never seen in any other adaptation or interpretation of the character. And I really like this. I never would have thought of Freddy as the shy one on the team, because we all know him to be a bit of a dandy and to be the good-looking one, at least as far as the male characters go. But the idea that he is more cerebral and was more comfortable alongside Velma in that, you know, cracking the mystery and designing the traps and explaining to, you know, the person who arrives on the scene, this is what happened, this is how he did it, and this is why, rather than being the poster child for Mystery Inc. This adds a layer to it. Daphne's probably the most photogenic of the Mystery Inc. crew. And so the idea of being the face of Mystery Inc. probably came naturally to her.
Sure, Freddy sometimes enjoys a little bit of attention, but to be seen on national television...
He seems horrified.
Yeah. Whereas Daphne, from the way she talks, she enjoyed a good mystery, but eventually
it got dull for her.
Became routine,
yeah,
predictable in many ways.
She's not having a problem with all the attention, it seems, in this clip.
And it seems like a natural progression to where she was going to end up.
Yeah. It's Freddy. I find it such a peculiar decision, and I actually like it. I think it's very peculiar, but I really like it. It hints that there's more to him than just the surface. As to the scene, how the scene ends, you have Daphne who just says, yeah, I do miss those guys though. And then we're going to end up cutting to Shaggy and Scooby going, yeah, we miss you too. And they've apparently, Shaggy and Scooby are actually almost tragic in a way. Not mock tragic like they make themselves seem. I laugh just because their scenes are pretty funny. It's Shaggy and Scooby. But Daphne has been wildly successful, and Freddy has had a bit of success, but he's obviously working himself to the bone for the girl he pretty much fancies and who has yet to fully notice him. In turn, though, it's Freddy who gets the idea to call up the rest of the Mystery Inc. crew and rally the team for Daphne's birthday, so that the story to an extent, at least for now, is focused on Daphne. And yeah, I know Shaggy and Scooby are kind of the main characters, but I'd almost posit that in some ways every character of this Mystery Inc. crew in this film is the main character, except to an extent maybe Freddy. Like Velma's got her own arc to an extent. Daphne has one. Shaggy and Scooby, I guess, kind of have one. But Freddy doesn't have one as much. He plays more the role of love interest to Daphne. And Daphne being kind of the lead is an interesting choice. Now, in the Scooby-Doo and the 13 Ghosts story, she was part of that team alongside Scooby and Shaggy, which, okay. But she's never really been the lead. Here, though, she's in some ways the most naive of the team. She goes, I want a real live monster. I'm going to go looking for one. And it's joked that, so more like Ghost to Ghost with Daphne. But the trouble is that Daphne is going after stuff that maybe she shouldn't disturb to an extent. But she's hungry for the actual supernatural. With this being something that is treated as a bit of a oddity. Freddy's along because Daphne's involved. And I think he sees it as, well, she's got to learn this lesson. You know what I mean? Like, I'll be right along. I'll keep her out of too much trouble, but she's going sniffing for trouble. I have to tag along. They're all but married. So it's like, yeah, I have to come along. But Velma, later in the movie, comments on, I just want a real live ghost. That's kind of an oxymoron, Daphne. Velma is playing almost a mentor role with Daphne, I would argue. But she's also playing a role of, she's along for the ride. She's having fun. Weirdly, Velma is enjoying the mysteries. Again, because weirdly, this might sound sad, but I think Velma, Scooby, and Shaggy peaked in their lives pretty much in college or something, cracking these mysteries. So that ever since, their lives have been in decline.
I know that it does seem like Daphne, she got off on the thrills.
Yeah. Daphne her life is an ascendance. Same with Freddy, but I think Freddy's being a little overworked by Daphne, and Daphne's not fully taking notice. In a way, this is a reverse to the live-action movie, where the one taking a bit of the credit for Freddy and Velma's work is kind of Daphne. I'm not saying this to bash Daphne's character. I actually like her character, and I don't think that she's entirely doing that, so much as she's basically representing the company in a way. Because, she's the most natural person to represent the company. Because Freddy's sure as heck not going to represent them. He can't get 2 words out of his mouth in front of on national television. Velma, I imagine, is probably a little similar at times. So it makes sense for Daphne, and people would probably rally more around Daphne, who's basically a supermodel in terms of looks or something. And the trouble is that, like I said, I think Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby kind of peaked. And now they're in decline.
Velma, she is in a stable economic place. She has her own home.
Well, we are not entirely sure, but yeah, she's probably in a stable place.
She has her own store, but
she's not, for example, writing her own mysteries. She's not pursuing her full potential.
She's in a rut.
Yeah. I would argue the way they present her is as someone who is a super genius, because it's Velma. I'm just saying, she is a genius. But where Freddy decided to apply his above average intellect to just the issue, learning how to video edit, learning how to be a cameraman, learning how to basically be a one-man production team to support Daphne, he pushed himself into fields he's not as familiar with as he originally probably was. Velma has fallen into this rut. she's very miserable. You can, well, she's just bored. And the trouble is, she is miserable with her current lot. She's in a better situation than most of us. But from what it looks like of the shot outside of her mystery shop, it looks like she lives upstairs. But we know she's not seeing anyone. She's not building a life for herself. She's a, what's the term? She's a passenger in her own life, which this often happens with geniuses. She's not pursuing her potential because what's the point? And Shaggy and Scooby are nowhere near geniuses, and they have so much more potential than what they're doing. And right now they're working dead-end jobs, basically as janitors and airport security guys, which they're not even regular airport security. They're the lowest ranking guys.
And I know it seems like
those two know so much about food and cuisine. I know they brag, oh, well, we've traveled the whole world on our stomachs in several episodes and whatnot. But they ought to, no offense, but they ought to be almost having their own Gordon Ramsay show. Because they are in universe, they are great cooks.
And I think the main problem is that as much as them and food is played for laughs, there's a part of me that thinks it's a little sad because they don't know where to go, and they essentially deal with their issues by indulging in food. And sometimes when cooking for other people, they'll indulge in the food they're supposed to make for them.
But yeah, here I do see it as they're working dead-end jobs, and in some ways they should have become the millionaires because realistically, they know more about food than anyone else on the planet. And they are great. They are 5-star cooks and chefs, so they would know how to make and prepare the best food.
And they're also social butterflies.
Yeah, so for them to be restricted to a cold room almost and not allowed to interact with the people arriving in the airport and forbidden from talking to each other or anyone else, there's something horrible about that. These are two individuals who depend on social interaction. And I just find that their intros, it is played for laughs, it is funny. We'll examine the scene in greater detail in the next video, but it's sad to see because they should not be restricted from interacting with people. Like, in a way, it reminds me of that Long John Silver scene in Treasure Planet where Silver just says being cooped up in a cage would break his spirit. Explaining to Jim that if he was in prison and kept away from people, like from being able to interact with people and fly wherever he wants, it would destroy Silver. And I think the same rule applies for Shaggy, even Scooby to an extent. And so Freddy here is not doing something simply out of compassion only for Daphne, who's obviously a little sad because she misses her friends. He, in a way, rescues Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby as well. And this is where the interpretations of Freddy as a narcissist and contributing nothing to the team is something I find I don't really like. Looking at this film, I like him as being almost an older brother to most of the team because he is looking out for them. Like, and here he may not have realized it, but he did kind of save Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby in a way.
And I think at the end of the day, he did figure it out, and I think he's happier for that.
Well, I don't know. I don't think he realized how much good he was doing for them. It's just he was like, hey, want to get together for her birthday. And we might ride around a little for like a month or two for a ghost-to-ghost thing. And I think Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby jumped at the chance. So I'd say he doesn't know, but once he met up with them, he knew. Because they probably would have explained it to him.
Because someone like Velma, she needs to stimulate her brain, for example. She could probably open up a mystery book and figure out who did what in any mystery book.
Yeah, she's she's someone I'd argue should probably be writing the mysteries. But she, at the end of the movie, it's shown she wants to. But the only thing stopping Velma from doing that was Velma. So in a way, she has a bit of a existential threat with her. Her arc, her villain is almost more herself. It's very existential in a way. Daphne is a very external threat. Shaggy and Scooby, it's the usual.
They should do the man versus food challenges.
Yeah.
They'd probably win every single time.
I wish that they'd do something like bringing Gordon Ramsay to voice act as himself and just have him trying to tear apart Shaggy and Scooby. Like, listen to this guy, Scoob! Where Shaggy schools him or something. Sorry, I know you're a big fan of Gordon Ramsay, but I think even he'd get off a little off of having Shaggy and Scooby just...
And apparently he loves playing up a caricature of himself in such situations.
Okay, I didn't know that. But, like, it'd be fun to see him play a caricature of himself and just have Shaggy and Scooby just make a total joke out of the show. That'd be funny. Anyways, tell us what you all think. And don't forget to, I guess, scream at that like and subscribe button if you approved of this video to stay tuned for the next one.